Hello, and welcome to this National MS Education and Awareness Month teleconference hosted by MS Focus, the Multiple Sclerosis Foundation, and made possible with support from Mylan, Genentech, Bristol Myers Squibb, Biogen, EMD Serono, Novartis, Sanofi Genzyme, Janssen Neuroscience, a Johnson & Johnson company. I'm your host, Casey Minnis, Director of Communications for MS Focus, and I'm joined by Frederick W. Foley, Ph.D., who will be talking to us about how we can stay positive with MS. Dr. Foley is a professor of psychology in the Furkoff Graduate School of Psychology at Yeshiva University, Bronx, New York. He's also Director of Neuropsychology and Psychosocial Research at the Multiple Sclerosis Comprehensive Care Center in Holy Name Hospital of Teaneck, New Jersey. He's considered a leading expert on the subject of cognitive changes in MS, MS-related depression, and sexual dysfunction in multiple sclerosis. We're pleased to have him join us to discuss these subjects and more. Dr. Foley, thank you for being with us, and I will turn it over to you.
Thank you very much, Casey, and thank you to the MS Foundation for giving me the honor to present to this group tonight. First, just to outline a little bit of what we are going to discuss tonight in terms of staying positive and the steps that you can take to stay positive. First, taking care of common symptoms, assertively and aggressively taking care of the symptoms of MS that are affecting your life. And next, reaffirming your core values and valued life activities. MS does not define you. It only defines you at certain moments in life. But the rest of the time, who you are as a human being and all of your values and skills and valued life activities define you. And so it's important for people to remind themselves of that, to put the MS in its proper place in your life so that you can proceed with a full life. Losses are also involved in MS, and grieving them at moments when they occur is an important part of moving on and becoming positive. And we're also going to talk about how to use positive coping and problem solving to continue to express your core interests and values in life. First, taking care of yourself, aggressively managing those symptoms that impact your quality of life. When new physical symptoms occur, again, it's important to contact your healthcare providers to let them know. I want you to complain loud and long to all of your MS neurologists and healthcare providers to let them know what symptoms you're seeing and experiencing so that they can address and treat them for you. Clinical depression is very common in MS, and many times when people go to their MS center, or their neurologist or their physician, they don't talk about that. They talk about the physical things, but they won't necessarily talk about depression. So we're going to talk about how the research that we and others have done that show that depression can be very well managed and overcome in MS. We'll also talk a little bit about changes in cognitive function that can sometimes occur, because there are many things that can be done about it in MS, unlike, in other conditions where cognitive changes occur. In MS, we can do things about it. In some other conditions, such as Alzheimer's, we really can't. Also, we're going to talk about adjusting to uncertain and unpredictable changes. Living with MS means living with uncertainty, and learning how to embrace that is an important part of adjusting to it in a positive way. And we'll also touch briefly on changes in intimacy and sexuality and what to do about it. So depression in MS. I know this is a positive talk, and now I'm talking about depression, but don't be put off by it because there is stuff you can do about it. So we know that major depressive episodes or severe episodes are quite common in MS, and there's increasing evidence that that is part of the disease process itself, which is why it's more common in MS than in any other neurological disorder. And there are different types of depression. There's deep sadness type depression, and there's something called bipolar depression, which includes hyperactivity and irritability as well. And both are increased in MS. But the good news about depression and mood changes, they can be successfully treated. We know that depression is responsive to antidepressant medicine. It's also responsive to a particular type of psychotherapy called cognitive behavior therapy. There have been a number of studies, ours and others, that have shown that cognitive behavior psychotherapy successfully treats depression and anxiety in MS. Even telephone psychotherapy, again, cognitive behavioral psychotherapy, was able to successfully reduce depression in persons with MS in a controlled clinical trial. Also, when you improve your depression, when you take care of that, you're going to improve your life. You're going to improve your adherence to taking all of your medicines that you need to be taking, because sometimes when people get depressed, they don't take care of themselves as well. So it's critically important that when depression occurs, that you take action and talk to a healthcare provider, get help for it, take antidepressants or take cognitive behavioral psychotherapy. And there's increasing evidence in MS to show that exercise is showing a very promising positive impact on depression and mood changes in MS, as well as a type of meditation called mindfulness-based meditation. These practices can improve mood in MS, and there's increasing evidence to demonstrate that. So there's a lot of different things you can do to address depression and anxiety and other mood changes in MS successfully. But you have to be the one to kind of complain about it, talk about it, demand to get help for it so that you can address this to kind of take better care of yourself and improve the overall quality of your life. Cognitive changes in MS. And about half of MS patients will experience cognitive changes. Most of them are mild, sometimes they're moderate, and they involve things like changes in learning and memory, changes in information processing speed, which is how quickly you can think, changes in visual spatial perception. So if you've been getting in more fender benders lately, your visual spatial perception might be a little bit more off than it used to be. Changes in executive functioning, which is a type of problem solving, and also changes in attention and concentration are all common in MS. Language and verbal reasoning skills are usually spared. So this is why it's sometimes very hard for persons with MS and their doctors and sometimes their family members to tell if cognitive changes have occurred, because they can talk and their verbal reasoning skills are usually intact. So sometimes it's important to kind of ask significant others if they notice any changes, in cognition, and it's also important to ask your doctors whether or not that might have happened to you. And look for key cues, like if you start making mistakes at work or you start forgetting more things than usual. I forget a lot of things all the time, so it's normal to forget things, but if there's a change, if it's happening more often than it used to be, then go talk to your doctor about it so you can get assessed. So the good news here is that we know that if you do have cognitive changes, you can be referred for something called cognitive rehabilitation. Cognitive rehabilitation is like physical therapy for the mind. Just as in physical therapy, if you have a balance problem, well, you go to your physical therapist and they can help you improve your balance. The improvement in balance isn't going to change the lesion that caused the balance, but you can change the functioning, through the exercises that they give you, because the brain has something called plasticity and can adapt to damage to it. So cognitive rehab does a similar thing. They give you exercises that can improve verbal learning and memory. And there have been some controlled trials recently that showed it can even improve changes in processing speed, how quickly you can think. Processing speed changes are the most common cognitive change in MS, because MS is a demyelinating disease, and it's the myelin in the brain that speeds the nerve action potentials through the brain, which are your thoughts. So when that gets affected, the thoughts slow down. And we now know that cognitive rehabilitation can speed your brain up again. And also, Cog Rehab has been found to demonstrate improvements in everyday life activities in MS. And studies on functional magnetic resonance imaging of the brain demonstrate that following cognitive rehabilitation, there is better neural networking in your brain. That is a result of the cognitive rehabilitation. So it doesn't change your lesions in the brain, but since it's improving the neural networking, how the different areas of the brain are communicating and networking with each other, the cognitive impairments that have occurred can frequently be overcome. So if you're having these kinds of symptoms, it's important to get help for them because help is available, and there's increasing evidence to show that these things work. Next, please. And we frequently advise people when we're doing helping them with cognitive rehabilitation, if they are having trouble learning and remembering, well, there are a lot of practical things that you can do, such as breaking reading material into shorter sections and repeat that reading 3 times. And do it not right after each other. Read it at spaced intervals. So read a bit, take a break, read it again, take a break, and read it again. Take notes on what you want to remember. The act of using your motor function, while you're trying to remember things. I mean, college students know this, that if they take notes of what they're studying and reading, they will learn and remember things much better. The same thing is true for all of us, and the same thing has been found to be true for persons with MS. Also, another technique that has been developed to improve learning and memory in MS is a story memory technique. It uses imagery with a list of things to remember. So we'll ask you to create a story that includes the things you want to remember. For example, people's names or lists of things that you want to do, or other things that you want to remember. If you create a story in your head and include the things you want to remember in the story, that has been found to significantly improve learning and memory in MS. Other ways to compensate for cognitive changes and improve them. Get super organized. Use an electronic or paper personal organizer. You can prioritize activities considering your MS symptoms. For example, fatigue kind of hits people most frequently, more severely in the afternoon and evening when you have MS. So things that are going to require the most energy or the most concentration or the most brain power, we encourage people to do in the morning when their fatigue is going to be less and their attention span is going to be better. Sometimes we advise people to either do things now when it occurs to them so they don't forget, or immediately write them down or kind of electronically enter them in their organizer. And if you have attentional impairments, when you're switching from one task to the next, just remind yourself of what you want to get back to. Okay, I'm working on this now. I'm switching to this. I want to get back to A, when I'm done. Just having that little talk with yourself will significantly improve your memory. Also, many people with MS have to instruct others how to communicate more effectively with them. Slow the pace. Say it again, please. It takes me a while to understand, or I need you to repeat that. So if you do that, instruct others to communicate with you in a way that will be more effective, that will help you as well. Next, please. Using organizational strategies is important. Use your organizer. Have it with you at all times. We encourage people to get rid of Post-it notes. I found years ago that I used to use these Post-it notes, and they were everywhere, and they would make beautiful collages. I wouldn't even see what was on them anymore. It's just this collage of paper, in my office. I kind of got rid of them, got rid of the scraps, kind of put everything in a calendar and organizer in one spot. And just as it can help kind of a generally disorganized person like me, we found that with our MS patients, it can help them as well. Making sure you have a workable filing system at home and a family calendar where everyone in the family has to put things on one calendar in one place so that things don't get lost and there's no family confusion. Having specific places for every item, such as your keys. How many of you on the line, I want you to think of, spend time looking for things that are misplaced? So it helps if you have a specific place for every item that you get in the habit of using, and you will be spending less time, doing those things, looking for those things. Setting up systems for phone messages, shopping lists, things like that help. So we're moving on to putting MS in its proper place in your life. MS will come to the foreground, to the front of your life at moments of change, when symptoms occur, when diagnosis occurs, when you're having an exacerbation, when you're having symptom worsening, and you need a change in your disease-modifying therapy. It will naturally come to the foreground at those times because you have to take care of it at that moment. Just as I said before, you'll have to take care of symptoms when they emerge. But those above are moments, when new coping strategies are important to learn. And it's also important to remember that your MS does not define you as a person. Your core values define you, and MS cannot take your values away from you. They cannot take who you are as a person away from you. And the MS Foundation has this wonderful booklet they shared with me called I'm Visible booklet. And it's really, it's like a workbook for, how to take charge of your life with MS and how to manage your MS and how to be positive. So I would strongly recommend that for everyone. I was quite impressed when I read it yesterday. Positive problem solving. Making a list of all your values, making lists of the things that you enjoy. Make a list of all the things you are grateful for in life. It's important to enjoy something about life every single day. So I want you all to hunt that down. What is the one thing that you enjoyed about life today? And if you go for days without enjoying something, well, then you're probably depressed. And then you should say, I'm probably depressed. Let me get treatment for it so that I can start enjoying something about life every single day. And in terms of this positive problem solving, if MS is interfering in the way that you usually go about your activities that you value, whether it's exercising, parenting, learning, socializing, working, or any other valued activity that you do, it's important to problem solve, to find ways to express these valued activities differently. If MS takes something away from you, it's important for you to problem solve, to find something to replace that thing that was taken away. So, and I'll give you some examples of people that I've worked with who've had MS who creatively problem solved, usually with some brief counseling to help overcome the obstacles and changes that MS put in their place. Okay, so here's the method for positive problem solving that we help teach people to do. First thing is you have to state a problem in solvable form. If you say your problem is your MS, well, that's much too broad of a statement. So if you kind of start with how to, when you're kind of stating a problem, like how to better manage my spasticity, or how to kind of improve my cognition, or how to manage this relationship better. Just stating problems in solvable form is very important before you begin problem solving, because if you just state a problem in a vague manner, or say, well, my problem is my spouse, or my problem is this, or my problem is that, without a how-to statement associated with it, how to cope, how to change, how to manage, you'll be blocked right from the beginning in solving that problem. So that's the first thing we teach people how to do, how to make how-to statements and state their problems in solvable form. Next, we want you to brainstorm ideas. Get input from others. Do not make any judgments, even if the ideas for solving the problems sound outlandish or wacky. Just welcome all ideas, kind of make note of them, write them down or record them in some way, and don't make any judgments yet on what's solvable or not. What happens when people get stuck with problems they can't solve? They frequently think of ideas, and they say immediately, that won't work, that won't work, that won't work. So they really kind of make judgments about ideas too early, and it cuts off the creative problem-solving process. So you have to first state your problem in solvable form, then brainstorm. Get as much input as possible. Accept all ideas, as crazy as they may sound initially, as possibilities. Finally, after you kind of finish your brainstorming and getting as much input as you can, and with MS, that input may come from healthcare providers, it may come from family members, it may come from employers, friends, it may come from a variety of places. It may come from kind of reading MS-related materials, such as I Am Visible. And after you kind of exhaust that, then you select out of all of those ideas an initial approach or plan or strategy to try, and then you implement it. So, and then after you implement it, you evaluate. Well, how well or how not did it work? Is it moving me forward towards my goal? Always keeping what that goal is in mind, and judging at that point how well the implementation work. You may need to acquire some new skills or some resources in order to help you move in the direction of solving that problem. Or you may need additional input from others or healthcare providers or other persons with MS or family. So, but again, this is where you evaluate after you implement it. And then after that, you adjust the implementation as needed or modify your strategy as needed. And so if you follow these steps in sequence, it tends to kind of improve problem-solving abilities. And we'll give you some examples of that. So now I want to talk about some problem-solving case examples of people we kind of use this approach with, and people that came to see me for some counseling because they were stuck. MS kind of made changes in their life, and nobody really expects to get MS. MS comes out of the blue, and so it presents you with situations and problems that you've never had to solve before. So it takes that kind of creativity and discipline to kind of welcome new ideas and think of, again, and this roots back to what your core values really are, because there may be many different ways to actualize them, to realize them in life, not just the original way you thought. One of my patients, John, was an avid athlete, and his father, growing up, connected with him through sports. Sports were everything to his father and to John. So when John had children, he wanted to bring the joy to his children that his father brought to him. His father used to play sports with them. He kind of helped improve all of his skill sets in sports. His father was an avid athlete, and John was an avid athlete, and he wanted to share that joy with his children. His MS symptoms got in the way, though, and he could no longer, in terms of baseball, couldn't pitch to them, couldn't play catch with them, couldn't run the bases, with them, or he couldn't manage what he wanted to be able to manage in terms of teaching them baseball and participating with them and improving their skill set. So initially he was very sad about that. I can't be the dad I wanted to be with them. I can't be the dad my dad was with me. But when, and after he kind of mourned that change briefly, he was able to move into problem-solving mode and to brainstorm and think of ideas and remind himself, being involved with sports in my kids is a core value. I want to do that. How else can I do that? Well, he could no longer pitch to them, so he took his boys to batting cages. Instead of pitching to them, he was able to observe them and kind of give them hints. Okay, you swung high at that one. Oh, great. You kept your eye on the ball that time, so he was still able to kind of help them. He no longer could pitch to them, but he could coach them from the batting cages. And then he became a coach for their baseball team as well, and was able to kind of actively participate and be involved with sports with his sons in very rewarding ways. So again, getting back to and keeping track of what his core values were and creatively problem solving, with them in mind and what his goal was in mind. How can I still be involved with them and have kind of share the joy of sports with them? And that's the way he solved it, and it worked quite well for him. So one of my other patients was a a relatively young woman who was a professional motivational speaker. She spoke around the country and sometimes internationally, kind of to motivate people and move forward in their lives. And she was very charismatic and a terrific speaker, and very sought after. After she developed MS, it interfered in her ability to stand and walk on stage during her speeches. She said she no longer had a stage presence. She told me she no longer felt powerful. She no longer could project her voice in the way that she wanted to. So she felt she could no longer continue her career, that she wouldn't be able to inspire others, kind of walking on stage shakily with her cane and having to sit down. And she felt very, very sad about this. She felt she lost a core part of who she was as a person. She was very invested, in being this top-notch professional motivational speaker that she was. And she said she felt lost. She lost a core part of her sense of self. But in counseling, she realized she can still be powerful with MS. She could still be powerful, even walking shakily with a cane. She could still inspire others while sitting on the stage in a chair during her performances. And she adapted her presentations with very powerful imagery on screen, while she was talking and sitting in her chair. So, again, her idea that she could only be this motivational speaker if she could do it in the one way she learned how to, and if she could have this presence on stage and a physical presence as well, it was an incorrect idea. She didn't want to give this up, so she had to be creative and problem solve. And she found that, she could find other ways and realize in her mind and in her heart she could still be powerful with MS. And she went on to kind of continue her career quite successfully. Another positive problem case example was Tom. Tom withdrew from having intimacy with his wife when he became disabled. When he transitioned, into a wheelchair, they had a very flirtatious relationship, and in their talk and in their actions, and they were very touchy-feely with each other. But he stopped all that. He stopped flirting with her. He stopped kind of touching her, and stopped his sexual behavior, with her, which was an important cornerstone to their particular relationship. So he came for counseling, with his wife, and he said that he didn't realize it, but he had stopped kind of flirting and touching her when he went into a wheelchair, because in his head, he was now a disabled person. And in his head, he felt like he could no longer be a sexual being, or like that's not something disabled people do. And again, it's our ideas and our thoughts when something changes and the judgments we make about ourselves that get in the way of problem solving. And so after counseling, and it didn't take long. I just sent them home and said, you start flirting with your wife again and, get back to that kind of behavior. Because you can be sexy with a disability, and he realized that. And he re-engaged with his wife, and his wife called me, and boy, was she happy and grateful, that he was able to solve that problem. So you will encounter problems with MS. It will give you problems that you've never experienced before, that you have no experience in overcoming. But and your initial ideas about how to solve those problems and how to move on, positively with your life, you may feel blocked, you may feel stumped. But I just want to let you know that by taking this positive problem-solving approach, and holding on to what your goals are and your core values are, you can find other ways to express that. You can acquire other skills to express those core values that you have that are important to you and important to the quality of your life. Okay, another case example. Mary, another patient. By the way, I've changed all the names of my patients, so But Mary was making fewer and fewer social commitments because she said, I never know how my MS symptoms will affect me on any day. She had great difficulty accepting the uncertainty that comes with living with MS. She said, I feel like the sword of Damocles is hanging over my head by the thinnest of threads, and any day that thread can break, and I'll wake up with new symptoms, or I'll wake up feeling terrible, and I won't be able to keep the commitments I made. So she was withdrawing from social contact, and this is distressing to both her and her husband. They were becoming more isolated. So again, she came in, and we, after kind of acknowledging the sadness that she felt because, of the kind of changes that MS led to her and her distress around the uncertainty, she kind of applied the positive problem-solving model. So she started making social commitments again, but she educated her friends and family about her situation so they would not be surprised if she had to cancel. She let them know, living with MS involves a great deal of uncertainty. I do not know, if I will be able to make that commitment that we're making right now. I will certainly do my best, but I may have to cancel, and I just want everyone to know that up front so that I'm not being capricious about this. This is the MS, and this is what I have to deal with. So for expensive commitments, for example, if there were concert or play tickets, she realized she had to problem solve around that because this could get very expensive for her to, pay for something ahead of time and not be able to do it. So she networked with friends to find backups to go to as many events if she couldn't. Hey, would you mind being second string? And, here are the tickets, and I'll give you a discount on them, if you're willing to, possibly kind of fill in for me if it doesn't work out. And she had a lot of terrific laughs about this with her friends and family and social contacts. But she developed a great way of relating to others, of getting others to accept the uncertainty in her life and for herself to accept the uncertainty in it and work around it so she didn't have to be socially isolated because she was afraid she wouldn't be able to make her commitments. So she had to educate everyone in her life about her MS and creatively problem solve so that, she would not have to withdraw socially. There were many times when she couldn't make events because of her MS symptoms acting up that day. But, more often than not, she could. And it didn't have a negative effect because of the way she educated everyone and the way she creatively problem-solved around it. And then she also began purchasing travel insurance for all trips she was taking because she knew that if she had to put out big bucks, like for a plane ticket, well, she wanted to have insurance that so she can get her money back. Another example, case example of someone I saw briefly. Joan was a household engineer. That was the label she gave herself. And she took she took care of a very active family, husband and 3 teenage sons. So Joan developed memory problems. And all of a sudden she was not doing all the things she was committed to doing. Like her husband would be walking out the door and he'd say, oh, buy this for me. And her oldest son would be walking out the door and say, oh, don't forget my dry cleaning. And she would forget to do these things. She no longer had the ability for people to just throw words and tasks at her as they're kind of walking away or doing other things, because she developed a significant memory problem. So we did this cognitive rehabilitation and brief counseling with her to empower her. And we had her create a family calendar. Big conflicts among the teenagers starting happening because, one son would say, you promised me I could use the car on Friday night. And the other son said, well, you told me I could. And she really didn't remember. So what she did was she said, listen, you put it on the family calendar if you want the car. And if someone's name is already there, then you negotiate with them, over it. Kind of leave me out of that loop. And instead of having her family members just tell her all the things they wanted her to do for them, she required everyone to write it all down. If you want something from the store, if you need your dry cleaning done, you need me to stop here, there, you need something fixed, write it all down, for me, and you take responsibility for that, or it's not going to get done, and it's on you. And so she had to reorganize the way the family related around all the tasks that she did for them, for this very busy household. And we also taught her how to use that personal calendared organizer to remember and prioritize her daily activities and the things that she needed to do. So as a result of this, Joan was able to take charge of the household activities again, and all the family conflicts settled down once everybody got used to the new systems and how they had responsibilities around this too. This is, I've tried to give you examples with different, physical problems and emotional problems and cognitive problems about how these positive problem-solving approaches can really help people overcome these problems that MS unfortunately gives people. Also, in terms of family life, I've seen many family members in conflict because they use different coping strategies to MS. One family wants to know all the MS information they can, while another family member might want to avoid MS-related information. And that gets misinterpreted. Oh, if you cared about my MS, you would kind of seek as much information as I do. Well, that's not true. It's just true that people are using different coping strategies. So I have people kind of declare that all coping strategies are created equally, and they have to respect that there may be differences in how different family members, want to deal with the MS. So it's important to kind of be accepting in families when there are different coping strategies used. Also, family misinterpretations of MS symptoms are very common. Misinterpretations of fatigue, memory, mood symptoms are common. So I was trying to explain to one husband who said this quote at the bottom of the screen: "You only say you feel fatigued when you don't want to do something that I want to do." So he was personalizing this, and I realized, when she said she had fatigue, and MS fatigue is essential fatigue. It's an illness fatigue. He said, "Well, I feel tired at the end of the day too." So I was trying to think of some metaphor or analogy that I could explain to him how MS fatigue is different. So I asked him if he ever had the flu. And he said, yes, I did. I said, well, MS fatigue is like that. It's an illness fatigue. It's not being tired at the end of a long workday. It's fundamentally different. And I explained to him some of the biological mechanisms, that generate MS-related fatigue, and he understood it in a new way and stopped personalizing, his wife's not wanting to participate in certain things, particularly at the end of the day when she was shot. And that's when fatigue is usually the greatest in MS. So educating family members about MS symptoms is sometimes extremely important, so they do not misinterpret, your behaviors that change as a result of MS symptoms. So a lot of times family members will kind of bring their family members into my office to have a professional explain it to them. So you don't have to carry the whole load. Use, contacts through your healthcare team to kind of help you manage your symptoms and even help you explain things to your family members. MS frequently makes people think about their relationships. It's important to identify the key relationships that you really want to strengthen in the context of MS. People will frequently let go of peripheral relationships when they have MS because the time and energy it takes to kind of keep all those people in their spheres is no longer feasible. So identifying the key relationships and the ones you want to deepen is important. Put less effort into peripheral relationships. And also, studies have found that a powerful predictor of long-term success in marital or partner relationships is simply the ratio of positive to negative interactions. And so it's important to to kind of recognize the importance of key relationships and begin to work towards increasing the ratio of positive to negative interactions. And as you do that, you'll find the relationship will deepen and strengthen. And we conducted a study where we found that people with MS and their partners can improve this ratio relatively quickly. That was a 12-week study. And over the 12-week period, we found that that ratio can change significantly in MS when both people are aware of, okay, this is what we want to do. We're going to strengthen our relationship. We're going to increase that ratio, and they're going to make efforts to do it. So sometimes, in this cartoon I like because it illustrates that sometimes MS changes the roles that we have in life. Just as it changed it was changing the role of the father with his sons in sports, with the household engineer who was having difficulty managing what she used to manage. So MS brings changes that require adaptation in the whole family as well. So family roles will sometimes change as a result of changes related to MS. There may have to be adjustments in employment, in earning income, in hobbies, sports, household, child care, caregiving and receiving, entertaining, and all the different roles that people have in family life. MS kind of enters your world as an uninvited guest. It kind of sweeps into your house like through an open window, and it never leaves. Imagine having an unwanted relative kind of move in to your home, and everybody had to adapt to the presence of that relative. And the relative was cranky and getting in the way and affecting everybody. So living with MS is sometimes means kind of it's analogous to kind of living with that kind of change in life. And MS not only affects the person who has it, it affects everyone who loves you in your life. It affects everyone in your household. It affects everybody differently. And it's important to respect that it will affect the person with MS, but it will also affect, everybody else who cares for you in different ways. And it's important for everybody to be accepting of that and acknowledging of that. So we found that successful coping can improve. This problem-solving approach we called problem-focused coping. And that as I mentioned before, targets the identification of problem sources, defining them in solvable form, and addressing them. And for an example, renegotiating work hours, because of changes in MS. And there's another type of coping called emotion-focused coping. And that is, how do you soothe and manage your feelings? One of the jobs that we have, as adults is to learn how to soothe ourselves when we're upset. And so emotion-focused coping are techniques to kind of help soothe you when you're distressed. And kind of we found in an early study that we can significantly improve both problem-focused coping, as I've explained to you in this, problem-solving approach, and also emotion-focused coping. And in this study, we were able to kind of improve both in, it was a 6-week trial period, relatively brief time. And this emotion-focused coping may involve things like seeking social support, prayer, meditation, relaxation, or other things that you value and find meaningful.
I'd like to thank everyone for being with us. I want to remind you that if you missed any part of this teleconference, it will be replayed on msfocusradio.org and available on demand from msfocusradio.org within the next few weeks. So follow us on MS Focus on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram for times and access information. We offer our sincere thanks to our sponsors for their support of National MS Education Awareness Month, to all of you callers for your participation and attention, and especially to Dr. Frederick W. Foley. Thank you, Dr. Foley, for all the time that you've spent preparing and sharing this great information with us.
You're welcome. It was my pleasure.